time, there was a king. And he had a great taste for fashion. He was a fashionista. And therefore, the king thought that let me have a competition. Let me have a competition. Whoever can tailor a unique kind of dress for me. A dress which had never been seen, a dress which has no comparison. Unique, out of the box, out of the world, which nobody has ever worn. Such a dress I want. And saying like this, the king, he announced the competition. He wanted something really out of the box which never before in the history anyone had worn. So there were heavy awards for this competition, and many people, many artists, many craftsmen, the embroiderers, the tailors, they were all coming to present various kinds of designs. There were presentations of designs of silk, embroidery, studded with gems and so on and so forth. But nothing was appealing because everything was looking routine. He wanted something new. He wanted something which had never been before there in history. So every single day so many artists would come. And people were traveling thousands of miles to reach to this kingdom. The artists, the craftsmen, they were traveling thousands of miles to show their presentation. But nothing was appealing to the king. And he was getting a bit morose. That is there nothing which is out of the box? Then one day a team of designers came and they said that, "O king, we are going to stitch a very unique dress for you. This dress is going to be out of the box. Never before anyone in history has made such a dress and worn such a dress, and never after anyone in history will do that. It's only exclusively for you." And the king said, "Okay, sounds, I just don't believe in sounds. I mean, what are you going to do?" And these designers said, "O king, we're going to make such a unique dress for you. This dress will be only made with threads made of gold. It will be a dress in pure gold." And the king was listening. And the designer said, "And the most unique thing about this dress will be that everyone will be able to see this dress. Everyone will be able to see the effulgence oozing out, exuding from this dress, exuding from your personality when you wear this dress. But for you, this dress is going to be invisible. For you, this dress is going to be invisible." So the king, he really started considering, he really started envisioning, he started simulating. What kind of dress is being talked about? Everyone else will be able to see the exuding effulgence, and I will not be able to see anything. So it will be invisible to me. This is something unique. This is something unique. So the king said, "Okay, but if you are not able to deliver such a dress, then I will behead all of you." They said, No problem. You just keep the supply of gold ready. It will take a month for this dress to be made, and then you see how you will rock the world. your style, your fashion taste will become an iconic trendsetter, or you can say such a role model which nobody can imitate. So anyhow, the king was very excited because he's going to get this kind of unique dress. And every day he would see these tailors, and when he would see these tailors, he was seeing that they are taking a lot of gold as input, but then he was not seeing anything being made. Whenever he would go in, because and then the tailors are making out, and the designers are presenting, okay, you see, this dress has become this much ready, and but the king said, where is the dress? And then he said, no, 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 no. The point is that this is invisible to you. That was, so even in the making of it, the property is being highlighted, and the king would feel, okay, fine, that seems good, so finally the dress was ready. And the king thought that, okay, in this unique dress, he's going to visit the whole kingdom. So he announced for a royal procession to be held, and the king was supposed to wear that new dress and go on an elephant procession throughout his kingdom to show the effulgence, to show his effulgence and to show his unique tastes, and to cast his impression on the hearts of people. So that was his point, or that was his idea. And then the day came, and the king was finally, getting dressed, and all these designers, they were dressing the king, and they were making him wear that sort of an invisible dress, and they were saying, oh wow, how the effulgence is coming. But the king was not able to see anything, and the king was feeling as if he had not worn anything much. Rather anything other than his inner ears, or so. But then he asked his ministers. He called some of his ministers in his room, and he said, "How am I looking?" And the ministers looked at the king. The ministers' eyes were wonderstruck, and the minister said, "Oh king, you are looking so divine. It is so amazing. It is so transcendental, it is so effulgent, you're looking so wonderful." The king became very happy. Really? Amazing. And as the king started moving forward, he came out in his court, and all his courtiers and all his entire entourage of ministers and commanders and military rank holders and so on, all of them looked at the king, all of them started glorifying, "Oh king, you're looking so much." All of their eyes were wonderstruck. Their mouth was wide open, their eyes were wide open, but then they were glorifying, "Oh king, you're looking so gorgeous, nobody can look like this. Never before in history, never again in future, this kind of a thing will happen. Amazing, amazing." And thus the king, he boarded the elephant. And the king boarded the elephant, and then there was this procession, and everybody was looking at the king. Everybody, their eyes and mouth was wide open. But when the king was looking at them, all of them were cheering that, "King, you're looking so gorgeous, you're looking so beautiful. This is the epitome of fashion. Epitome of fashion." And thus the king was so happy, like that. So the procession went and went and went, and out there actually in the among the citizens was this very small child. And this small child was a very poor child. He was a 4-year, 5-year-old child, very poor child, and he was excited about hearing the king is wearing some unique dress actually. So he wanted to see, but then there were so many people crowded, he was finding it difficult to creep in. So he was actually making his way in between the legs of different people. And somehow or the other he came in a position in which he looked at the king. And as soon as he looked at the king seemed not to be wearing anything. And the child became very excited because the child was similar. The child had not given for any order of not of the same designer. So the child was just dressed in the 4 directions. That's how he was. He was a poor child actually. So, and then the child became very excited. He thought that the king and me same party. So when the elephant was passing by, the child actually started clapping, and the child started shouting, "Naked, naked, 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 Nangu, Nangu." So he started shouting like that. And by the way, children have a very shriek voice. The pitch is very high. So the king could hear it. And when he heard, all the ministers, everybody, there was a grand silence. And this child was going on clapping, "Naked, naked, Nangu, Nangu." He was going on clapping, and speaking, and now his voice was overpowering because all others were, there was a shrill, motionless silence. And the king was dumbfounded when he heard this. Everybody from the ministers, the military rankers, and everybody was looking with such indignant eyes towards this small child, you know. And with the king, he got down off the elephant, he went near the child, and the king was really looking at himself from front to the back. He looked at everyone, and then the king started looking into the eyes of all his citizens. And yes, at this point of time, the king realized that actually he was not wearing anything other than his inner ears. Unfortunately, he wore them. So he was not wearing anything, and he really realized that. So it was this small child who opened up his eyes. It was a small child who opened up his eyes. So it's not that the dress of the king was not, the fact that the king was not wearing anything was not visible to others, but then out of fear of the king, none of them were presenting it out. So their minds were prejudiced, their minds were conjecturing, their minds were being run and driven by various kinds of algorithms. It was the simplicity of heart of the small child which could actually expose the entire illusion. So this story has an important message for us. Many times people say that, what is this chanting of the holy names? What is this spiritual life? It is just some kind of illusory fantasy you are cultivating in your head. A self-induced, self-imposed hypnotism. A brainwashing exercise. What is the spiritual world all about? It's just like if you put a virtual reality goggles, then you happen to go into a different world and you may do some weird things to an outsider, but then you are there in your virtual reality world and then you are moving around. But to anybody who sees such a person who is in his virtual reality world, then such a person will appear to be crazy. He will be doing some odd things because he is in a different world. So it is a self-imposed world or world view, like that. And one seems to be doing some crazy things. This is what people talk about. And sometimes people say that, okay, how it is much different from some sort of intoxication, because in an intoxication, again you go to a plane wherein you have, one goes to a plane wherein one is doing some crazy looking things. The projection of that plane, looks out to be some crazy looking stuff. So this is what is being talked about, or this is what we hear. Now the question which comes, the point to evaluate at this stage, at the stage here, is that what exactly is hypnotism? What exactly is illusion, or what exactly is hypnotism? So now, if we try to understand, in the story of the king, or in the anecdote of the king, there were two sets of people. One is the designers, and then the designers were corroborated or substantiated by, or the designer's point of view was being echoed by the courtiers, and the other type of candidate who interfaced the king was a small child. So now if we try to understand who was hypnotizing, whether the designers and the courtiers were hypnotizing or whether the child was hypnotizing. So the king spending dozens of kilos of kilograms of gold to get a unique dress out. Was that hypnotism, in the expectation that he will get something unique, something out of the box? Or the child's simple, straightforward words which pierce the king, was that hypnotism? So this brings us to a very important question. This brings us to a very important question here. So that which takes us away from the realities of existence, that is what is a drive towards hypnotism. And that which brings us back to the realities of existence, that is not hypnotism. So we will see spiritual life is the reality of existence. Because spiritual life talks about the unchanging flavor. Seasons will change, times will change. But what is that unchanging flavor? That is spiritual life. Now, whereas material desires create a cloud effect, because material desires are adding artificial layers around us, simply artificial layers around us. So is that not hypnotism? So therefore the king was hypnotized, because he was thinking on the first level that yes, he can prove his greatness by wearing a unique dress. That was the first symptom of intoxication, and that is based on a material desire. I mean, rather than working so much on the dress, could he have worked more on his heart, on his character, on his service to his citizens, on the service to the Lord, then he would have been much more glorified and eulogized, is it not? So that's hypnotism. And now his material desire was his weakness of the material desire was encashed by the designers. And that's what was happening. Who cheated him? So that was hypnotism. Not the piercing, straightforward words of the simple-hearted child who just spoke the reality of that you are naked. So sometimes you will see in Shastras, the reality of material affairs is spoken in a very blunt and straightforward way. So that is because that is a vision which is coming, without any prejudice. That is a vision which is coming without any conditionings, and therefore that vision straight pierces or exposes the illusion, the fog. So what is hypnotism is a big question. And therefore we can see that it is not chanting of the holy names which is hypnotism, but it is the entire materialistic propaganda, the propaganda which fuels one's material desires, which is a self-imposed hypnotism. The Shastras explain that chanting of the holy names creates a waking up effect. Just like a drunkard, when he is drunk too much, he will be sleeping. He will be in a state of slumber. Similarly, one who is intoxicated by material desires is in a state of slumber. When one connects to God by chanting the holy names, then that spiritual sound vibration, which is exuding out from the spiritual transcendental realm, that sound vibration enters the person's existence and wakes him up, shakes him up, wakes him up. And in this way, when a person wakes up, then he comes to the platform of reality. So something which puts us to sleep or puts us to a state of slumber, that's hypnotic. But something which awakens us from sleep, that is that's not hypnotism. That is awakening. That is an awakening medicine. That is an awakening aushadhi. And that is what is chanting of the holy names of the Lord. So many times when people talk about spiritual life being theoretical or chanting being a derivative of hypnotism, and people are willing to say that yes, devotees are living in a dream state, they are doing something which is abnormal, which is eccentric. Which is abnormal, which is eccentric. These are the kind of various notions which sometimes people have. These are the notions which people have. So now we will see that many times people say many such things like this. What is the testimony? What is the testimony? The Shastras are describing that a materialistic mindset is insane mindset. And the materialistic people see devotees as eccentric and something out of the box. What is the testimony of what is going to work? On one hand, we are seeing in the material world there are so many promises that okay, you take to a drive of unleashing your unleashing your passions, and you take to the life of driving and drilling your desires, and in that way lead a fulfilling life. It's there in your hand. Success, happiness, sense gratification, everything is there in your hand. That is a kind of materialistic propaganda. And whereas we hear that yes, the Shastras explain that one should never go for these flickering goals. One should invest in a long-term. Activity. So the point is, when one is having a long-term cultivation, then the results are not going to manifest so quickly. And because the results are not manifesting so quickly, it may appear that spiritual life is not giving much results. And therefore it may appear that the devotee is just dreaming. Just like in school, sometimes it happens that some children, they are playing, they are roaming around, they are now going to restaurants, they are going to video game parlors, they are having a nice time, and they are moving around. Whereas they will see that one of their colleagues or friends that is just sitting all the time and is just studying. So now the friends so somebody studious. I've seen many times the children, they make fun of their friend, that okay, you are simply studying and wasting your time. You see, we are enjoying, and you are such a bondhu that you are wasting your time, wasting your life. No. You don't even know how to enjoy. Your life is so miserable. So now, this is the point. Now, what is the testimony? So now this may raise a dichotomy in the heart of a student who is just studying. That okay, they are telling me to that I am simply not enjoying, and I am missing everything in life. And should I continue studying, or should I just also roam around, freak around and all that, like a vagabond? So the testimony is going to be the testimony of time. I have seen even in IIT, if somebody is studious, and all others will come and say, "अरे क्या कर रहा है? पढ़ के मर जाएगा, है कि नहीं? शर्म कर कुछ, है ना? इतना पढ़ रहा है, IIT होके इतना पढ़ता है, शर्म नहीं आता है." So like that, so the person may get confused. So similarly, sometimes hearing the jeering and the mockery all around, sometimes the devotee may get confused as well. So we have to understand the long-term results because it is not on a day-to-day basis visible. Therefore, to others it may appear that it doesn't give any result. But when But in due course of time, when the spiritual practice starts giving results, that is an eternal result. That's an eternal result. That's like the germination and the growth of a banyan tree. And the banyan tree is going to grow, it will be very difficult to cut it, and it will be there for such a long lasting eternal time. So that's the idea which we have to understand. The testimony for a devotee is the time factor. As time proceeds, a devotee moves and his vision starts becoming more and more confident, and as time proceeds, a materialistic vision starts becoming more and more hazy. That is a test. That is a test. So one time, during the times of Srila Prabhupada, in the Western world, some people did a court case on the devotees. And the allegation was these devotees are using some techniques. They are saying some spiritual techniques of chanting Hare Krishna and so on, derivatives of that. But then these devotees, they are simply brainwashing. It's a brainwashing exercise. That was a court case which was being done. And in America, this court case was going on. And Prabhupada was asked many times to give some comments about this case. Sorry. Sometimes some press reporters will ask, Swamiji, what do you think about this brainwashing case? So Prabhupada would say that you're talking about brainwashing. One time Prabhupada said, you're talking about brainwashing. Prabhupada said, yes, their brains are filled with so much of garbage and so much of unwanted substance, and we are washing it. So you should be grateful to us for doing such a service to humanity. Their brains are stinking. It's all filled up with garbage, conceptions, animalistic mentalities, exploitative mentalities, and we are washing it. We're doing good service. You should support us. Another time Prabhupada was asked, he said, these people, what are you talking about brainwashing? These people don't have any brain only. Materialistic mindset. It doesn't have any brain only. So he said, we are not a brainwashing movement, we are a brain-giving movement. Prabhupada said that. So anyhow, Prabhupada appealed, let the jury read our books and then see how is the vision and the philosophy which we are presenting, is it not sound, is it not robust, is it not well grounded, is it not well balanced, is it not all around auspicious? And that was being done, that was done, and then the case resolved in such a sense that it testified that yes, this practice of spiritual life is bona fide. The devotees are perfect gentlemen, and they are much more mature, they are much more sound, and therefore the allegation was just cancelled. So following that, the Brain Research Institute in America did some research research and analysis on the devotees who were practicing, and then they testified that the devotees who were chanting Hare Krishna, so they are very sound people, they are more mature, they are more benign, they are more compassionate, they're more sensitive to the feelings of others, they're more selfless, and they when they step out into the material duties, they are able to do those duties much better. That was the testimony which was given to the practitioners of the chanting of the holy names. So therefore the chanting of the holy names is something which brings a person back to reality, because it brings a person back to sanity. So yes, these were the research results. The devotees have a good presence of mind, and then people, they have the highest, chanting helps the person do his activities in a much better way. As one advances, one becomes best in his own field. So Srila Prabhupada would make this point that genuine practice of Krishna consciousness is very attractive. Prabhupada would say that the germ of Krishna consciousness is existing in the spirit soul. So the germ of Krishna consciousness is pre-installed, it's an intrinsic characteristic of the spirit soul. So as soon as anyone comes in touch with God, anyone comes in touch with the divine, transcendental realm, immediately one can feel the warmth, Immediately one can feel the warmth in his heart. So now something is hypnotic, it won't have a sustaining appeal on people's lives. It will not have a sustaining appeal. There are different periods of time in people's lives. Uh, like when a person is a child, then he is addicted to say toys. But toys cannot hold the person throughout life. It's just a few years. Then a person may be intoxicated by video games, but video games do not overwhelm one's life. And sometimes even adults, they get addicted to a particular kind of say gaming, app or something like that. But then the 1-2 years addiction remains. Person sees performance going down, this that. Then he takes steps, he cuts it off. So anything which is intoxicating, which is hypnotizing, which is taking one to an artificial realm, its effect, one may not want to sustain that effect throughout life. But simple, genuine practice of Krishna consciousness in itself is so attractive. And lifelong one is able to do that. Lifelong one is able to do that. Srila Prabhupada would give the example of the transformation of heart. When one sits and watches a movie, then one may get a change of mind because he is going into a different plane where he can see, a lot of dushum is happening, romance is happening and all that. One may have a feel-good feeling at best. But there is no transformation which comes. But when one is practicing spiritual life, there is transformation from the heart. The Lord helps from within by transforming the heart, and the Lord helps from without by making the situations more favorable. So in both ways the Lord offers His help. And in addition to that, the Lord increases such a devotee's attraction towards Him. So there is a practical result which one can see. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna describes that this process of devotional service is pratyakshavagaman. Directly one can experience the results of it. So yes, sincere practice gives very wonderful results, and even a glimpse, immediately, even a glimpse of Krishna consciousness gives a person a refreshing flavor, a hope-giving flavor. So the understanding of Krishna consciousness is very sound. One time, one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, now he is one of the leaders and gurus in ISKCON, Giriraj Maharaj. So that time he was a very young man. So Giriraj Maharaj hails from America, and he belonged to a millionaire family. And when he was looking for deep meaning to life, and when he met Srila Prabhupada and he came to know about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, he became so attracted. He just wanted to be a teacher, a researcher and teacher of the science of living, the science of transcending the inabilities and the conditionings and the entanglements of this world. And Giriraj Swami, he wholeheartedly took to this mission to just research and to share and help others, to this missionary task, to this task of service to humanity and to God. So that came with much of a shock for his parents, who never expected such a thing because they had no prior understanding of what is called a spirituality at all. So because his parents were very influential and they were millionaires, so they caught him and they took him to the number one psychiatrist of the United States. And this psychiatrist was having a one-on-one sessions with Giriraj Maharaj. And then the psychiatrist said, you just leave me alone with him for a few hours and I will set him right, don't worry. And but any of you don't disturb me. You can go home or you can be outside, whatever you want, but just me and him. So that being done, Giriraj Maharaj was taken inside the doctor's chamber, and his whole family was sitting outside. And sometimes his family's ears were completely hooked to any kind of sound which is coming from that chamber. and sometimes no sound was coming, and sometimes there were sounds, loud voices and thuds, and as if some fighting is going on, and banging is going on, and sometimes it was very serene, and sometimes it was very loud, and that was going on. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours passed by. So after a long, long time like this, and the parents, they were, their hearts, their minds, their eyes were all hooked to that door. And after a long, long time, the door opened. The door opened. The doctor came out. He was loosening his tie. He was gasping for air. He seemed to be very tired and worn out and drenched, and and very weary. And then they asked him, "Doctor, successful?" Yeah. The job done, successful. You could set him right. That was the kind of questions. And the doctor was straight moving to his home, and they were chasing him. They said, "Doctor, please tell what happened. What happened?" And then the doctor turned back and he looked at them and he said, "If I stay 2 minutes more and hear this boy, I will become like him." And then saying like this, he just went out. So just imagine, he was a psychiatrist. That means he was such a he was a psychiatrist, and when he was talking, he would be taking Giriraj Maharaj's words and what he was speaking with such a pinch of salt, with such a suspicious vision, and with all that, he was so influenced that he was feeling that as if he will also like to become. He would also be impelled to become. Why? Because the process of Krishna consciousness is so logical and it is so well grounded that anybody gives an open consideration, it makes the most sense. So yes, the power of Krishna consciousness anyone can explain, but hypnotism cannot be explained. So in fact, Maya Shakti hypnotizes the materialistic vision or the materialistic person. So what we are seeing here is the Maya Shakti, which is acting out of these three modes. So what is being depicted as the three female controllers, there are these three modes, and these modes are driving the people. The two fellows fighting, and these modes are actually driving them. So the person is thinking, I am the controller, a materialistic person, but actually he is completely under the control of the modes of material nature. Goodness, passion and ignorance. He is completely driven by the modes, and he is acting like a machine, and he is thinking, I am the enjoyer, I am in control. So this aspect is described in Srimad Bhagavatam by this term, Pashyan apina pashyati, that a person, he is able to see that there is misery all around. He is able to see that he is insignificant, but he does not see. He sees and he does not see. Everything is in front of him. How this world is incomplete without God. How this world is miserable without God, but still he is not able to appreciate or learn the lesson. He sees and not sees. Pashyan api na pashyati. So one is completely trapped in material affairs. Just like when a person so just like when a person is in a prison. So material world is like a prison. Some prison cells may be very torturous, some prison cells may be air conditioned, but a prison is a prison. It takes away one's freedom. So whenever and people's hearts are so empty, and people are moaning and agonizing pain, but the person is still intoxicated to think that if I get this facility, if I get that sense gratification solved, maybe I'll become happy. So this is Pashyan api na pashyati. The Shastras describe about the ladder of life. One is always, at any given point in life, One is empty, one is thinking that maybe if I take the next ladder, if I can get this, if I get a car, if I get the promotion, if I get this much money, if I get this facility, that facility, one more step, and I will be more happier. And he works hard, foams in the mouth, sweats and toils and bleeds to be able to get there. When he gets there, he feels that okay, now here also is empty, and then he sees no one more step. Maybe I should add that, and that is what will give me happiness. In this way, whole life one keeps walking one step, next step, next step, but the heart remains the same, empty. This is called as Pashyanapi na Pashyati. So therefore, this material world, in fact, can be described as a shadow. So material world, whatever we see are simply shadows, just like you see in the figure. That is simply the material world. We leave Krishna's shelter, we leave the shelter of the Supreme Lord, and in material world what we are seeing is shadows. And everyone is very eager to catch the shadow. The property of the shadow is what? The shadow is inside. You can see it, but you cannot catch it. Because nothing comes in the hand. This is exactly what happens with materialistic sense gratification. One can see it, but one cannot catch it. So Bhagavatam describes this material world in a very interesting way. As shadows, let us see. So Bhagavatam gives beautiful analogies describing this material world, and we can remember this by the word shadow itself. S stands for sand castles. So the Shastras explain sometimes parents are on the beach and parents are having a nice experience viewing, sitting down and viewing the entire ambience, getting sunbathed and all that. Whereas children, they are busy playing. The children are actually making a house, a castle, a sand castle, and the children have made the brother's room, the sister's room, the mama's room, the papa's room, the grandma's room, the grandpapa's room. And the children are busy, for hours and hours they are busy, making this palace for their living. And then the palace is made, as you can see, and the children are just about to invite the parents to enter and in this way start living in that home. And then all of a sudden what happens is that a huge wave comes, and the wave comes, it completely drowns or submerges the palace like that. But when the wave recedes back, there is no palace. It's all plain, it's all washed up. And then these children are crying, our palace got washed up by the ocean. And the parents, they are laughing and clapping and they are saying, oh, how foolish, how sweet, how innocent. In the same way, these materialistic these parents don't realize that they are also making castles. People are working hard to get posts, to make to purchase land, to make buildings, and so on and so forth. But the moment, but one wave of time comes and everything is washed up. That's what one can see actually. So when that happens, when people's desires and what they worked hard for get shattered, then the same parents are crying, and that time it is explained that the sages, when they look at them, then they are clapping. How foolish, how innocent. Sand castles. So one should not spend his life making sand castles, but one should do something tangible, something which has an eternal impact. And that's what the chanting of the holy names, that's what the instructions of the Shastras, that's what the lifestyle is given by the Lord is meant for. Sand castles. So one is endeavoring for something, but by the time he reaches it, it's not there. So one of my neighborhood seniors, so he had applied for University of Roorkee examination. Those times the examination used to be separate, IIT and Roorkee. And that time, so he had got a good rank, but that time in Roorkee, or that time in the world, the branch which was giving a lot of returns in terms of salary was printing technology, paper printing technology, and he took admission in printing technology, and he took admission. That was one of the highest paying, jobs at that point of time. Printing technology, there was so much demand. So he was in first year. He saw that the top salary placements were from the same branch. The second year he saw the same thing. Third year he saw the same thing, and he came to fourth year. Then he realized that, or all of a sudden, what happened is that the demand of that got saturated, or the demand of that got faded away. So when he came to fourth year, there were no jobs for printing technology pass-outs, and therefore he passed out and he had no job. He simply came to the neighborhood, and he was not knowing anything to do, so he would play cricket with me. I was in class 10th. So by the time you get it, the impact is not there. So the next is H in shadow. H stands for house on fire. So Shastras give this analogy that a person's house is on fire, and then and the person and then people are knocking. That, my dear sir, please please come out. Your house is on fire. And the person is not opening the door. He's saying, I'm busy. I'm doing interior decoration. Actually, there are a lot of interior decoration tasks. I have to finish it. After that only I can open the door and I can cater to what you're saying. Right now, I'm really busy. And then people are shouting, "Arey, your house is on fire. Why are you simply focused on, why are you simply obsessed about the idea of interior decoration? You have to run away at this point of time." So sometimes, from a materialistic mindset, a person is just doing some interior decoration, but his very existential house is on fire, and then the person is keeping himself unnecessarily busy, and devotees are knocking at the door and telling that, "Arey, your house is on fire," and the person is saying, "No, I am busy." So it's just like we will see many times people just artificially try to keep them busy in many artificial needs. This need, that need, many artificial need. Actually, people try to artificially keep themselves busy, but actually, people's hearts are empty. Their minds are so restless, and a person is being crushed and pulverized by the moods. The hearts are crying, the hearts are empty, but the person is simply keeping himself busy. And in this way, one may say that, why you are simply, taking to, artificialities, increasing the artificialities of your life, and your house is on fire. The person says, no, I'm busy. So this is the same analogy of house on fire. It's like modern day people, they try to, take shelter of so many artificialities. Therefore it is well said, the smiling faces crying hearts. The hearts are crying, but externally person is trying to put a smile. Or they say that, okay, externally, person is feeling very much emptiness, and then he's going around socializing, and they say, okay. So then there is a saying that yes, their hearts are filled with fears. The hearts are filled with fears. They are on the verge of tears, and they are saying cheers. So that's a kind of artificial life. House on fire. A stands for accumulating broken pieces of glass. Accumulating broken pieces of glasses. So, accumulating broken pieces of glasses. So, this entire propaganda on consumerism and any of the gadgets or any of the artifacts which the consumer industry is offering us, they're all like broken pieces of glasses. It costs so much. Person has to spend so much time and energy getting it, and if you get it, it's not much. It's at best useless. But it is not just useless; it has the sharp edges. Why? Because it is intoxicating also. And because it is intoxication, it expands the illusion and entanglements. Is it not? Like sometimes people become addicted to brands, and they say, okay, I can only wear brands. So now just for maintaining his status quo and wearing brands, he's working so hard. Unnecessarily. So this is the intoxication, simply accumulating broken pieces of glasses. Yes, D. D stands for depositing in a bank account which is fixed to doom or which is destined to doom, a Diwala bank, and one is investing all his wealth. So if you see, material desires are exactly like that. We invest all our time, all our consciousness simply running and chasing behind material desires which are never satiated. Even if we get what we want, it is still not satiated, and we know sooner or later it is going to be doomed. So what is the use of depositing in such a bank account? No. So people run behind fashions, people run behind status quo, people run behind the latest technologies, the latest trends, and in that way, it's simply depositing. By the time like there are people who change their mobiles, every few months, who change their cars, every few years. Uh, who change partners also every decade, or maybe half a decade or so. So why this whole game of depositing in a bank account which is fixed to do? The next is O. O stands for obtaining a painting at the cost of one's eyes. So nowadays we can see in the world everybody is running, everybody is chasing. Sometimes, but for what they are chasing actually, people are running, people are so busy, people are working 12 hours, 16 hours, 7 days, and day and night they are now burning the midnight oil. For what? To get some material facilities, but what is the cost which one has to pay? It is explained that actually today's day, any person, any corporate person working in an MNC, his profile is like that. The people, what do they do is that, at the time of their youthfulness in 20s, 30s, they spend, they spend or they burn their health to get wealth. But then the health is gone. We see so many software engineers, 5 years, 10 years of working, actually, the person becomes a vegetable. There is spondylitis and arthritis and so on. And there is poor digestion because of stress, hypertension, and there are so many other psychosomatic, symptoms manifest in one's body. The eyesight goes here and there, the headache is there, and so and so many numerous problems. So people, they sacrifice their health to get wealth, and then for the rest of their lives they keep spending the wealth to get back the health. So that's obtaining a painting at the cost of one's eyes. And W stands for withdrawal from an empty bank account. So it's a very big bank account, a very powerful ATM, anytime access, and you have the ATM card, you have the PIN code, you have the password, but you log in and any amount you want to withdraw, it says sorry, your bank reserves don't allow. So this entire, material razzle-dazzle, which is so glaring, which looks to be so captivating, is all like that. In Hindi there is a kahavat, ऊंची दुकान फीका पकवान. तो ये भौतिकतावादी दृष्टिकोण की जो दुकान है बहुत ऊंची दिखाई देती है, लेकिन कुछ लेने को लगो तो फीका है, पकवान फीका है. There is no substance in it. It is just in the air. It is just an illusion. It is just a shadow which we see all around actually. And a person tries so hard to grab the shadow, but he wants to substantiate what he has done or extract some juice out of it. There is nothing. It's an empty bank account. इसीलिए all these material relationships, all these material assets, they are said, Bhagavatam is describing them as fallible soldiers. They are all fallible soldiers. They look like they will help us, protect us, come to our avail at the time of our need. But when we need and when we try to withdraw, then they will give sorry. Then they will not be able to help because there is no substance in any of them. It is simply a khol. There is no substance. It's an empty khol. You just open it up, nothing is there. Only air is there inside. Vacuum is there inside. Air is there inside. So that's why this entire material world we can see that in this way we can see that this entire materialistic consciousness is a total game of hypnotism which is going on, and we are simply passing from one intoxication to other. Either we're getting frustrated with one intoxication, coming out, landing into another intoxication, or one is going into further and further intoxication, and intoxication within an intoxication, and in this way one is increasing his delusion. But it is only when one interfaces the spiritual life, the connection to God, can one start getting awakened. And that is what the chanting of the holy name is doing to us actually. That is what the chanting of the holy names is doing to us. So therefore, it is not chanting of the holy names or the spiritual life which is hypnotism or a brainwashing exercise, but it is the material life, it is the materialistic, atheistic point of view and vision which is hypnotism. So it is the material energy which hypnotizes us. Yeah. And therefore Srila Prabhupada explains that for a person who is having materialistic vision, such a person is crazy, he is ghost haunted. So therefore his words, his statements, his moves don't make much sense. And Srila Prabhupada would say that Krishna consciousness is so powerful and so perfect that once started, it takes a person towards perfection. Yes. So the process of Krishna consciousness is voluntarily accepted. And it is voluntarily accepted. And why devotees would like to practice every day? Because it gives strength. And we need that strength every day to fight against the illusions and the intoxication which Maya Shakti creates. Yes. So therefore Prabhupada explains that this Maya Shakti is always bombarding us, and like a soldier, one needs the machine gun of a bead bag, and one needs to chant the holy names, and one chanting is like one shot. It shoots at one flavor of illusion with which Maya is trying to attack us. So that is what chanting does to our life. That's what chanting does to our life. It helps us regain our lost heritage, our lost territory, and we can. It helps us expose the illusion and expose the insanity which a materialistic person may fall trap to. And in this way, chanting opens dimensions of auspiciousness and happiness for us. Thank you. So we'll stop here.